And in the last couple of weeks, first I had to say, due to the COVID crisis, it wasn't safe for you to go back to the classroom for the rest of this school year. But at least I had the comfort that Connecticut had one of the most ambitious online digital learning initiatives in the country, and that we are making a point to make sure everybody's education was going to continue in a different way. And I was very conscious of the fact that online doesn't work for all of our kids, and that some kids were still getting left behind. Some kids are on the wrong side of the digital divide. That was the separate but equal of our generation, and we wanted to address that, and we wanted to address that seriously. And it was that point that we realized why we had the Partnership for Connecticut, which was a partnership between the incredible generosity of Ray and Barbara Dalio and the Dalio Foundation and public resources from the state of Connecticut. And that partnership, in a year, made available 60,000 laptops for kids who would otherwise not have access to education, online education. Those laptops are already being distributed. Today, I was told they're going to New Britain for those kids. Thanks in part to the partnership, online streaming education from Scholastic and other places, working amazingly with our teachers. What I loved about the partnership was it also gave rise to teachers who had good ideas, so they'd have some of the resources they needed to execute those good ideas. We were talking with the partnership about what we do as the school, as this summer goes on, and these kids have had, let's say, a bit of a break from traditional learning, and how the partnership could help in terms of getting these kids back and ready before the new school year begins. That said, I'm very sad to announce that I've had a number of conversations with Barbara Dalio in particular, and the partnership, and due to a breach of trust, we both decided that it's time to disband the partnership. And we're going to make that recommendation to the partnership board in the very near future. As Barbara said beautifully, and all you're on the board of the YMCA, you're on the board of the Boys and Girls Club. It really is important to have trust there and make sure nobody is trying to undermine the core mission. And in this case, I think there was a sense from the Dalios that there are some people that really wanted to undermine the mission of the board. A lot of that was reflected in leaks. Some of that was reflected in the leak just this past week, a very sensitive personnel matter that went right to the front page of the Hartford Courant, and a lot of partisan comments as part of that. And it's not the first time, but we're going to keep trying for these kids. And I've spent a lot of time talking to Barbara Dalio. Nobody cares more about these kids than she does. And I'm very hopeful that the Dalios, with their piece, the $100 million contribution that they made to the foundation, they'll continue to make investments in these kids. The public piece that includes me and the 4 legislative leaders will recommend that we step back. And that money that we had committed to the partnership will be back into our tax coffers. Given the deficit, we could use some of that as well. I just leave you with one thought. I mean, I came into this building proud to be an outsider, proud to say I don't think the old way of doing business in this state has really worked out that well, and I think we got to get a new way of doing things. I was one of the first non-politicians, more of a business guy in a long time here, and I really wanted to get the private sector, big business, small business, academic, not-for-profits, more invested in their state with their resources, as in the case of the foundation, but also their intellectual energy and what they could bring. And we're still trying to work out that hybrid method. Today we're having one of our concluding meetings with the Committee to Reopen Connecticut, which followed my same philosophy, where I wanted to get the best and the brightest from around the state. And we had involving the COVID crisis. We have amazing state employees, but we can't be experts on everything. And if we have the opportunity to get some of the best academic thinkers in the country, if we have the chance to get people who have devoted their lives to infectious diseases, we have business people large and small, I thought that would better inform our strategy going forward and give you confidence that we are doing the public health piece of the COVID crisis in the most serious way possible to keep you safe at the same time that we are slowly reopening the state starting on May 20th. But again, there were a lot of political hits against the Committee to Reopen Connecticut, the advisory board. These were all corporate talking heads and academic elitists. That's not the way I see it. I say thank you. I say thank you for what you did, and I'm going to do everything I can, working with the legislative leadership, to make sure we can come up with a model that invites these people to be participants in what we're trying to do as a state, to give you confidence they're doing it in the best interests of the state, the best interests of each and every one of you, based upon the trust. But I'm afraid in the course of 48 hours, the Connecticut Partnership and the Committee to Reopen Connecticut are both going to go a separate way. But that doesn't mean we're not going to keep trying to change the way we do business in this building right behind me. That's what I had to say. Thanks, everybody. Sure. Yeah, Paz was asking about what do we mean by the breach of trust, and maybe it started early. And look, I had to work very closely with folks who weren't used to having every email scrutinized by the public, but we worked through this. I thought we made our meetings public. We were going to stand up there and explain every single one of our decisions. We were going to earn the trust of the people of Connecticut on behalf of those kids who are getting left behind, and I thought we had gotten there. What happened, though, Paz, was, and I got this from the board, every time there's maybe a touchy personnel matter, those are the types of things that, as you all know, that's handled in executive session. You don't just have a turnstile and run it right out to the press, put that right into a column, and then have a lot of partisan commentary that goes along with it. I think that was a bridge too far. Yeah, they reached out to me, and we worked on this together, and I support them in their decision, and I really support what they want to do for the state of Connecticut every day. You heard that. The question was, how does this decision affect the Dalios' commitment to the 60,000 laptops? It doesn't. The Dalios are putting the money on the table to pay for those laptops, which frankly they negotiated with Dell. We got them at a much less than wholesale cost, getting them distributed, getting the training that goes along with the laptops so parents and teachers can use that. And so they will continue that commitment, and I hope they continue more broadly their commitment to the kids of Connecticut.
Has also contributed to the daycares opening up for the healthcare workers. Does that affect that at all?
No, it doesn't. No, it's just you're right. I mean, it's worth noting that they incredibly generously set up daycare next to each and every one of our major hospitals so first responders could have a safe place for their kids. No, I'm trying to urge them every day to stay involved in the state. That's one of the things I've tried to do around the state to make sure people want to keep their commitment here. Look, it's easy to give money to a museum and have your name on a wall where everybody says thank you. Obviously, committing to the state is a little more complicated, but it's worth doing because you're making a difference in people's lives.
Governor, do you think that some of this criticism is coming from Republicans who don't have otherwise an issue this year? Tolls are dead, they can't criticize the budget. Do you think this is a little guerrilla activity in an election year for the General Assembly?
Oh, I don't want to go there, Ken, but as Paz said, this started from the very beginning. I mean, we were going to go out there and try and raise money from the private sector to help match what the Dalios were doing. And that same day, one of the Republican leaders goes to the floor and says these corporate tycoons are dropping dollars on we peasants. Well, that didn't really help the fundraising that much. And I really welcome folks who want to contribute to the state because I need it every day, intellectual as well. I'd like to see the entity continue without the public dollars and the public members. I think that got to be complicating. So I'd like to think and hope and pray that the Dalio Foundation stays involved in the incredibly important mission they have for disconnected kids. We need that more than ever now. And I'd like to think that the incredible board we put together of educators and teachers and not-for-profits that devote their lives to kids, they stay involved as well. The state will, this is all subject to a vote of the board. I've talked to most of the leaders about this, and that's right, the money gets returned and back into our coffers.
To be clear, is it fair to say that this has nothing to do with whatever the circumstances were that led to the removal of the CEO, that it's about how the information was leaked? That was the proximate cause.
Yeah, and it's not the first time. Look, you know this. You've been on boards. You've all been on boards. It starts with a fundamental issue of trust. And if you have a disagreement about an issue, you take it to the board chairman, you take it to the other members, and you work it through. You don't leak it to the first columnist you can find. No offense, you guys.
There was $100 million in public money in this. Were the Dalios, generous as they were there a little bit of naivete as to how this would work? You know, they were free to have a private philanthropy with their money and spend it as they see fit and involve whomever they wish. But once it was the state putting up the $100 million, that put them into another realm. So were you and they a little naive about how this was going to work? Because there is that tension about transparency you're seeing in the advisory group.
Well, you mentioned the advisory group. That has nothing to do with money. That has to do with 45 incredible people putting in probably over 100 hours a week, devoting themselves to working our way through the COVID crisis in the safest way possible. And, you know, they were not welcomed.
Go ahead, Pat.
Was there, did you misread what would be involved in doing a hybrid, $100 million in private philanthropic money and $100 million in the state?
I don't think so. I talked to everybody about it. To me, it was very important that we have the four leaders, Republican and Democrat, on there, all subject to FOIA. Every decision we make would be made in public. I love the fact, you know, some people want me to use nothing but taxpayer dollars and state employees to do everything. I like the fact that I had other experts involved in the group. And when it comes to the Reopen Connecticut Advisory Board, same thing. I thought we could supplement what we're doing at our Department of Public Health by getting some of folks who have devoted their lives to this to help us make better decisions. One last, yeah.
Refocusing on the overall opening tomorrow, can you explain your negotiations with the tribes? If they open without your blessing, do you think that could be a flashpoint for infection? And what criteria are you looking for them to meet before you'll give them your blessing?
Well, we're having discussions. I should probably leave it at that. But there's nobody in the White House task force, you know, led by Vice President Pence, nobody that thinks having a bunch of people inside in a casino, mainly older, coming in from out of state, alcohol, food involved, is the best interest where we are in this COVID crisis now. I think there's a real sense I have, and I believe my fellow governors do, that we should wait a little bit longer. Thank you, everybody. I'm not going to get into a personnel issue. That's Those are one of the things that do belong in executive session.
But were you blindsided by the fact that that happened, that she was asked?
Not going to get into executive session material. Last question. Oh my God, I think our committee, the advisory board, put together a very detailed set of principles. From those things that are essential businesses and safe to less essential businesses and less safe. And we've tried to measure that along the way. When we started up being one of the first states to allow manufacturing to stay open, because it was essential, especially defense related. Outside business, the essential businesses in food and healthcare. You know, now we're moving into maybe a little less essential, but we think we can do them safely. And that's how we've gone through the gradation. We tried to be pretty clear about that. It's ramped up. We've done over 500,000 claims. We're getting, for the gig workers, the independent contractors, most states aren't even beginning to get those claims out. The federal government set up a brand new program and then said, go deal with it. Connecticut's one of the first states to be able to get those claims out. I think we're making progress every day, but I understand the frustration when you're on the phone, and we're trying to deal with that every day. Thanks, everybody.
See you in a bit.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.